Hi everybody, Susan Guthrie here, your artist in residence and director for Shakespeare in the Classroom. And this is Sharice Albright, our executive producer.
Hi, I'm Sharice Albright, and I'm the gifted specialist here at the Academy, and I'm also serving as the executive producer for our production.
Welcome to Byte. This is our first recording to give you information so you can study at home. It's the flipped classroom.
Yes.
Tell them why we're doing it.
A flipped classroom, in case you don't know, is where you get your instruction at home for homework, and then you practice what you've learned in class with your teacher there to guide you. So recently, our students auditioned, and from their self-evaluation, we have taken a formative assessment and seen that they feel like they have a problem with classical verse. They identify that overwhelmingly as a weakness. So in response to the formative assessment, we would like to offer this review of classical verse.
This is interesting because our 8th, 7th, and 6th graders have all had this in previous residencies, so this is review for you. Shakespeare wrote in poetry, and we largely in the American theater try to make prose out of it because we think that that makes it clearer. And since we don't really have time to teach classical form anymore in school and not very often in acting school, this kind of gets lost. But poetry is not prose. Poetry doesn't sound like prose. It's not supposed to sound like prose. It's supposed to sound different. It's heightened language, and it lifts us up over the normal way we speak. Also, classical verse form is really pretty simple. It entails pausing at the end of every verse line, and when you pause, you get a breath. Now think about that for a second. When you take a breath, you release nerves. You empower your voice. You get a lot more vocal power. And when I say vocal power, I mean it's not just loud. You get the power to be soft and still be heard. But as far as acting technique, the character makes a decision a lot of times in that endline pause, or what we call the acting transition. And when we get more into acting class, we'll talk about that transition. But trust me on this, the transition from one action to another, from one thought to another, is more exciting than the character just staying on one level. I mean, what's more exciting, one level or two? The answer to that, in case you're unsure, is two. Two levels are more exciting. Two actions are more exciting. That's why you pay attention to some actors and you don't to others. Remember, in Shakespeare's time, my job in the theater did not exist. There were not directors, and Shakespeare's directing you and even teaching you how he envisions the character by the way he lays the poetry down on the page and where he breaks the line. In other words, where you come to the end of the line and take that pause, there's character information for you. So let's review. Classical verse form is simply pausing at the end of every line of poetry and getting a breath. It may be a very long pause in which you think up the next thing you're going to say, or whether your character makes a transition and thinks of the next thing they're going to say and then says it. Or it might be a quick catch breath in which you just get more breath, but it's so fast that the audience doesn't even perceive it as an actual pause. And yet, when you take that quick breath, it gives the integrity, it keeps the integrity of the verse line. And if Shakespeare's audience needed that little extra time in the endline pause to understand what was going on when they talked that way, we need it even more. And remember, a lot of the words are archaic. We don't even use them anymore, and so we need that little bit of time. And just to be clear, that endline pause points up what you said in front of the pause and what you will say after the pause. And since you've heard me say in class many times, there are no accidents in Shakespeare. It's not an accident where he breaks the line. So I have forced Miss Albright to read for me, and we're going to investigate this just a little bit. We're going to use Beatrice's speech from Much Ado About Nothing. It's her soliloquy. She's all by herself, and she's talking about how the rude things that she's just heard from her cousin and friends, they are letting her know that Benedict loves her, another character in the play, but that she's she's so cantankerous and not very nice that nobody will ever tell her of this great love because she'll just be horrible and mean and embarrass the guy. So this character is not only commenting on the rude things that her friends have just said about her, but she also makes the transition to decide to love this former enemy named Benedict. Okay, Miss Albright. The first line here is made up of 2 complete sentences, and I often find that actors want to pause there because when we've taught them to read, they think, here's the question mark, and we need to pause. So I want you to take the first 2 lines and go ahead and take that pause in the middle of the line. And actually just read, how about you read the first 4 lines, just any old way you want to. And I will say, when you come to commas and things like that, go ahead and take the pause. Okay?
What fire is in mine ears? Can this be true? Stand I condemned for pride and scorn so much? Contempt, farewell, and maiden pride, adieu. No glory lives behind the back of such.
Good. Okay, now that was great reading, and you made perfect sense of it. I submit to you that Shakespeare is going to give you that, well, just to cut to the chase, the anger she feels is going to come out when you don't pause in the middle of the line. So I'd like you to read right through the middle of the line and take a breath at the end of the line and then keep going. Don't pause at commas, periods, question mark, and why don't you go ahead and read further into the piece and I'll just stop you.
What fire is in mine ears? Can this be true? Stand I condemned for pride and scorn so much? Contempt, farewell, and maiden pride, adieu. No glory lives behind the back of such. And Benedict, love on, I requite thee.
Okay, good. Okay, now, how did that feel?
It felt like she was angry. Like rushing through the line and not pausing gave me the angry speech when someone is just firing one's words because there's so much on her mind.
And I do think you approached it with more energy, but you actually got even more energetic. And you have to have an energy level more than life. I mean, we talk about Shakespearean characters being larger than life, and it's the truth. And just, this is my rule of thumb. People pay money to come see you, and you owe them more energy and complete actor homework and all the work you can possibly do because they pay to see you. So what I find interesting is it just kept building and building. And verse is spoken at a little bit, it's rapid. It's a little bit faster than normal speech. Now, often people will say, well, if I'm pausing at the end of every line, won't I take longer? But you actually don't. You actually will get through your text quicker when you take that end line pause. And you will find that you speak brightly and with more energy, which is highly desirable. And you, the actor, get to shape that end-line pause any way you want. And then just one side note. I will encourage you as actors to take the end-line pause and thoroughly explore what's in it for you. But ultimately, it's your choice. And I may argue with you, but often I let the actor take a full stop in the middle of the line if they really need it. Just to use this piece a little longer, and then I want to look at something from Hamlet really quickly. What fires in mine ears, can this be true, is certainly questioning what she's just heard from her best friends. And then the next line is similar, stand I condemned for pride and scorn so much. But something happens in the end line pause after that second line that tells me that that pause needs to be a little longer. Whereas the pause at the end of the first line could be just really quick, the pause at the end of the second line needs to be longer because Beatrice says something different. She makes a decision to let go of her contemptuous ways. And the reason I know that is because Beatrice says it. You never have to worry about it. Shakespeare lays everything out for you like a roadmap. So when I stop at the end of stand I condemned for pride and scorn so much, I have to think, the character thinks in that end line pause maybe a little more about I hate my former friends, but then maybe gets a grip on her life and thinks, wait a minute, if my close friends who I know love me are saying this, maybe I should think about this a little bit. And then the decision comes, okay, I'm going to change. Those three things are pretty exciting. And as I talked through them, that seemed to take a long time. But when you practice taking the time and thinking through that, eventually an actor has the talent to make those three things happen in a quark. That's what rehearsal's for. That's what actor homework's for. But if you don't stop to think through that, you're just saying words. And the audience will not listen to you. You take the audience with you when you make those fine points and think those thoughts, even when you think them really quickly in performance. And you just set the stage on fire when you do that. And Shakespeare demands it, and he gives you all this work. So I'm suggesting you take the pieces you used for audition and you think through those end-line pauses and utilize them. It's your interpretation about what the character's thinking, the transformation or the transitions they're making, but the evidence is in the very next line. And remember, I'm available for tutorials too. You can check it out with me and read for me. It's important to check, especially for more complex characters like Hamlet and like the characters in Hamlet, because Shakespeare will have them make transitions not just at the end line pause where you get to pause, but sometimes those transitions happen in the middle of the line, but you don't get to stop. Now there are ways that we'll finesse that, but we'll learn that in class together. So do you want to read it for me one more time? And just let the classical verse form, let reading through the line take you, and go ahead and take time in breathing at the end of the line. Okay?
What fire is in my ears? Can this be true? Stand I condemned for pride and scorn so much? Contempt farewell, and maiden pride adieu. No glory lives behind the back of such. And Benedict love on, I will requite thee. Taming my wild heart to thy loving hand, if thou dost love, my kindness shall incite thee to bind our loves up in a holy band. For others say thou dost deserve, and I believe it better than reportingly.
Hey, thank you. Thanks.